exactly is Parkinson's?
That is a very good question, and there's not a simple answer, but I'll try to touch on a few points.
Sure.
So the core of Parkinson's disease is loss of dopamine producing neurons in the brain.
Hmm.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps with movement and among other things. And the reason why this happens is still not completely understood. There are some cases of Parkinson's disease, and actually around 15% that are genetic in nature. So those are cases where Parkinson's can often run in the family. Those are often also people who get it at a younger age and might have other particular features about them. But most of the time, Parkinson's is more of a disease of aging. And there's sort of cellular processes like the wastebasket systems and the cell stop working as well. And so there's abnormal accumulation of a protein called alpha synuclein that kind of clogs up the cells and is a way kind of to think about it and just kind of slows some of these processes down. So then this happens, people get the tremor that we already talked about, but also slowness of movements and stiffness. So that might manifest as trouble getting the arm in a sleeve in a jacket or trouble with closing buttons,
Hmm.
whisking an egg. So
Right.
doing kind of fine motor movements or movements that have kind of repetitive motion in them. Back to your question, there's not one simple answer, but it's basically an energy issue in certain cells that produce dopamine, which can lead to a whole host of symptoms.
So that's so interesting. Most people associate dopamine with feeling happy and the emotional side of the dopamine transmission. But now we're talking more movements. So this is more in the movement center of the brain, right?
Correct. So yes, so dopamine is very key for moving smoothly, and but with that being said, dopamine is in fact also very important for emotional regulation. And with that in mind, people with Parkinson have a much increased risk of depression and anxiety,
Mm.
of up to about 70-80%, which can actually be early features of a disease.
Yeah.
And I've seen people in my practice who did not struggle with things like depression, anxiety earlier in life, but a few years before they started developing a tremor, the family did notice that they had been more anxious, for example. So it often does go hand in hand.
Yeah. And you often get this like masked faces with Parkinson's, right? Where they don't have as much expression. Do you think that that is part of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because part of it is so that's kind of probably more the movement side of it.
Uh-huh.
And these kind of, the movement that happen automatically are usually the ones that are decreased in Parkinson.
Hmm.
So, unlike a situation where someone has a stroke and, for example, has complete paralysis of one side of their body, people with Parkinson are able to move. They just move slower and it takes a lot more effort.
Right.
And so that's kind of what happens with phase 2, like sort of facial animation, smiling, laughing that people do typically without thinking about it, can be reduced. And
Mm.
so people can look more depressed and they might be more depressed, but it is also a reflection of sort of a slow movement or paucity of loss of movement.
Got it. Okay. All right.